Gardening, end of gardening. Although that sounds a bit careless, it's the result of an awful lot of trial and work to get that recipe right. The first time I heard about this system was somebody who came to my garden in '54 and said, "Oh, you're a Ruth Stout devotee." "What's Ruth Stout?" I said. And I said, this woman in America had written a book on no-dig gardening, which I didn't get till 11 years later before I could find it. And it is a great book. And I think it's out of print. Ruth's dead. And it is a great book, and she was a great woman. It's one of these good, tough books, you know. We mounted a very strange challenge to the Orange Bathurst Agricultural College. We challenged them to a strawberry growing contest. This is real weird. And they did it the way they had to do it, you know, mound her up, put plastic all over it, pour chemicals along the rows, plant their strawberries and sort of stand, and they laid drip lines under the plastic. Ruth did her mulch garden, I did mine. We all used the same strawberry runners. When strawberries were on the crop, we weighed the strawberries per length of crop. Both of our beds beat them flat. But the deciding factor was we set out bowls of strawberries for taste tests amongst the students who all wanted to be the ones who won. We weren't being fairly judged. And our strawberries, on blind tests, our strawberries beat them flat again.
Well, can you use leaves, broad leaves, if you don't have newspaper? Or
yes, you can. You can use palings. You can use flat stones. What you have to do is cut light out to the Earth's surface so that there's no chance of weed seeds germinating. And I think they need a 3/1,000,000th of a second flash of light to start germinating. Something tiny. So like when you're double digging and turn the sods over, flash, flash. You're making yourself a weed problem. If weeds come up in this, if by any chance, you know, a dock sometimes got enough root to push its way right through and come out on top, just push it down and put more straw on it. And that will keep you for about 80 minutes a year. It'll keep your family in salads and most ordinary vegetables, you know, cauliflowers, whatever. So you just put in the number you would use in a year, that's all. But then you have to sit down and work out your whole year on a piece of paper. Because only you know what you like. And you plant the sort of squash you like, and you plant the sort of cucumbers you like. You can also put a little trellis up the back of the whole thing. And I always put a row of sunflowers or Jerusalem artichoke around it, so you can put a little trellis up here. And I always put this row of tall, well, Jerusalem artichoke really is the best. Rounded, it's a little windbreak, and it's also another crop. And that's it. But if you're out on the high plains and it's, you know, screaming cold and the winds are cold, nothing to stop you building a four-tile wall, 4 high, around it and face that to the sun. And that gives you a beautiful, sheltered and warm, permanent environment. I fill the tyres up with dirt where I have to do this, and I put nasturtiums and stuff in them, you know.
Bill, what do you put around it? 4 tile?
4 tyres.
Oh, tires. All right.
For which someone pays me $2 now, because they got to pay $5 to dump a tyre these days, so they pay me $1 to take it away. So, you know, you can make $40 or $50 around there. Generally speaking, I do not approve of tyres, and I only use them where it's totally functional to do so. And you daren't mulch over lettuces. You've got to leave those up on there lettuces will not take mulch at all. One of the few vegetables that won't push through a lot mulch. Lettuces disappear if you let bits of straw blow across them. They just damp right out. They're real light sensitive. The other thing, if you use some of the smaller lettuces and let them seed, they seed extraordinarily well in mulch. You know, those little tiny French lettuces, little brown ones, what are they called? Not exactly. Yeah, some little type. You know the ones I mean. Very small, reddish-edged lettuces. They seed down like crazy in mulch. You get 1,000 up and then you just pick them out of that original bed and put them in another one. Your little seeds, you put that little pad of dirt there for your carrots and lettuces and all those tiny seeds. And if you want to make sure they come up, you lay a damp newspaper on them and keep looking, and as soon as they've shot, take it off. One of the reasons people can't get carrots is they bury them, and you should surface plant them and then cover them with a board, in a row. But keep looking, because if you leave them 2 days too long, they all get stuck in the board. Keep looking and just flip it off as soon as they're well and truly germinated. These are all gardening tips. I know Anthony Rodale quite well now, actually, and I said to him, what is all this fortune founded on? What is it you guys do? What do you publish all the time, And he said, garden tips. Yeah. So a number of times you could read or could have read that you put a board on top, you find seeds and get good germination. And whenever you plant carrots, always sprinkle a few radish with them, because it helps space your carrots a little, and you got your radish out and gone before your carrots are up, and it seems to help everything if you're into plant. Sometimes when there's too much sun, I think we discussed this in the climatic section, your plants don't do well because there simply is too much light. And in South Africa, we've done 75% shade cloth. You get a better garden, especially with things like carrots and like parsley. It hates too much light. So, some shade of some sort. If you're a bushman, amazed me. I went out in the Kalahari and showed them how to garden pretty well like this. And then the women took it up and off they went. When I got back there a week later, they had all this done. And every one of these beds had a thatched, they put sticks in here and they thatched up and over across it like that and put light shrubbery on it. So it was like so many little huts, and they hadn't taken a single other plant out. They went right through the complex low bush was there. They hadn't dug up anything native to do their gardens. So little huts wound in and out of the native bushes. It was really delightful. And they were going along with their watering can and watering through the brush on these little trees. I said, what made you thatch your garden beds? I said, you wouldn't leave a baby out in the sun, would you? I said, well, no, I wouldn't, But obviously I would have. And, here, when you look in, here's these tiny little baby shoots, and you can see that they're just not going to do it in the sun. So that's what they do with their babies when they've got to leave them. So this is what they did with their babies. So it was very successful. And I, at a rough estimate, I'd say they gave it about 70% shade, but shifting shade too. So sometimes rays of light came on the plants, sometimes they're in shade. Just what you do is design your spring planting for all your summer food and your late summer, early autumn planting for all your winter food. say late summer, early autumn for cold winters. We don't have cold winters, we have clear, sunny, hot winters, dry. But for cold winters, you put all your cold crop in, you know, all your cauliflowers, however many you need for the year. Cabbages, cauliflowers,
Potatoes.
yeah, what do you eat with chicken livers and soul food?
Collard.
Your collard greens, and your, yeah. Kales are nice, aren't they? You know, you get all different colours of them too. It's pleasant. Some look like roses, for God's sake. And your chards and beets. You don't plant enough chard in the United States. I've got to tell you that. I'm sorry to have to tell you that. But, you know, this much chard will actually run on for 8 months and give you all the fresh greens. And it really is a good plant. It's to some extent close to unknown, but they're starting to get it now because there's red ones and yellow ones, so if they're colourful enough, you plant it. But you certainly don't plant enough parsnips, I regret to say, which are passing up, you know, probably one of the best baked vegetables. You know, if you like sweet potatoes, parsnip, you know, it is delicious. And baked vegetable is important for another reason. Dry baking, you know, just wash them, don't peel nothing. Just wash them, put them on a grill in the oven and dry bake them. Really concentrated food for children. And they get a lot of nourishment out of dry baked vegetables. And you can only do that with root crop. But if you boil them, they get far too much moisture. They can't eat enough to get significant amounts of vitamin A or something. So when you've got little kids, bake them their roots. And they like the baked roots too. Or give them to them raw. I think the best way to give kids carrots is wash the carrots and leave them carelessly about somewhere. I've never got over those little red radishes. I grew them when I was 7, terribly successfully. I was one of the great all-time radish gardeners. So I really love them, and if I see them, I just can't resist. I buy them and eat them because, you know, you associate them with the pleasure of growing them, and which you've had all your life. And I never brought a green pea inside knowingly. and my kids, all you find in the garden is little heaps of green pea husks. So you don't need to cook that many things, but some things you do, and if you do, bake them if you can. If you can't, then just steam them just cooked, a bit al dente. So getting you right, and all your greens you should cook in very little oil, stirring them till they're wilted, just wilted, not cooked in any sense, and then put just a dash of lemon juice or vinegar with them, and that way you get all your A vitamins out of your greens, and some of your protein out of it too. But if you don't put that oil with it, you can't actually absorb the vitamins. No matter where you read your recipes, whether it's an Eskimo cooking wild-gathered greens in seal oil, or an Alaskan housewife, you know, cooking with bacon grease, or whether you're having a salad with a French or an Italian dressing, everybody's got the sense to put some oil with their greens, and so they can absorb the vitamins. Because vitamin A is no good to you without oil or fats. And in actual fact, sometimes your greens aren't much good to you without a sprinkle of something like blood powder. If you want to get all your iron out of your greens, you've got to eat the tiniest piece of meat with them. It doesn't have to be a steak. It can be a sprinkle of dry pounded deer, but it actually assists your body enormously in extracting iron. We've actually dealt with gardening in terms of providing yourself with your food. You need about 4 square metres of box that you put your little potatoes on the bottom of, 9 inches apart, and just fill the whole damn box up with straw this high.
What?
Straw. Or as they come through, just keep burying their little leaves in straw till you've got them coming through about that much straw. And then leave the box a bit higher so the tops of them don't blow off. It's always catastrophic when you fill your box up with potatoes, the top blows off before they set. So leave the box a bit higher than the straw. And 2 square metres of that, with 2 crops, that is your staple food. That's about 3 bags of potatoes. If you can eat more than that, you're eating too many potatoes.
One question. 4 square metre box filled with 3.5 feet of straw as they grow.
Yeah.
How
And just
far apart do you plant the potatoes?
9 inches each way. Because it fills up with potatoes all the way, right up. You've got very little straw left when you knock it down. Just take one side down and pull them out. It's all potatoes.
And then that's a covered box?
Oh, no, no. No, Bruce, no. Perfectly open at the top, a little higher than the straw. So the sides of the box come up, say that far above where you filled it. So it shelters the top. So that, otherwise it's pretty weak in that straw. So it is devastating if the tops blow off and they're in flower, actually. And then there's the famous herb spiral. You don't know permaculture if you don't know herb spiral. So you build a mound of dirt 2 metres across, like that, and get some rocks or bricks from a destruction site, and come up round it in a spiral, filling in with soil, and wind up it. But put that triangle up first. It's much easier to build up round that cone. I built an awful lot of them in my day. So, just put a cone of rubble, 6 feet across the base, and you want the thing to end up 3 feet high if you can. Sinks a bit. And then plant all your herbs in it by the kitchen door. And a trial run, put your flannelette nightgown on and put your fluffy slippers on. And if you have to get your slippers wet, it's too far from the door. So, the plain fact of the matter is that if you put a piece of parsley where Bruce is, you won't go out in wet weather to get it. First, you make a cone, Act 1, Scene 1, right? Yeah, and you make that out of basically rubble.
Rubble, not good dirt, but rubble.
No, bits of mixed clay and crushed brick and whatever you don't mind losing.
Well, it's not going to be growing in there?
No, you can put limestone in there, and sort of brick and stuff. But they make your rubble. Then start by cutting in and putting proper little steps in and put little rocks in, or, double bricks, or you can go short pieces of wood and just go up to the top, knock the top off. If you're thoughtful and put a pipe up there, you put a little 4-foot sprinkler there. That's it. It works. So your actual form is about like that, and then, however. So you go up a spiral, ramp, which, if you measure it, and you were right, about 6 feet wide and 3 feet high, gives you about 58 running feet of herbs, which is a lot of culinary herbs. And if you take your sun angles right, and this is partially shaded, this is where all your foliage herbs go, particularly for me, parsley and chives. And this is where all your aromatics go, thyme, sage, marjoram. And I usually crown it off with one of my favourite, what do you call it? Rosemary. That's for remembrance. Rue, that's for you. So these are built a lot. And the error this is 6 feet. And if you want to dive your ramp underground and put a child's plastic bath in and plant your water herbs there, some of your mints and that, do so. And I put some water chestnut there too. Yeah. Now, where you come to ground level, just take your ramp down under the ground for about that far and have a little marsh and a little pond and a frog or two. And that was a result of a midnight. I'm staring at the ceiling one night and I'm thinking, how many dimensions, you know? And I thought, why don't I do three-dimensional garden? Don't be ridiculous, you know? I thought it was a ziggurat. But I drew this and explained it to a bloke called Seats Leaflang in Holland, and I didn't put the dimensions on. And he did it 28 feet across and higher than this room and larger than this room. And when I got back there, I couldn't. He said, come and look at my herb spiral, Bill, you know. Went out, I'm faced with this big ziggurat, and of course to get all that dirt, he had a moat. Had a little bridge that he lowered across his moat, because, you know, water table was about a foot away, because lowland's pretty low. So he had his moat, and I said, great Seats, fantastic. You know, and you could walk up his ramps and there was still tons of space. And I said, you know, questions I did not want to ask. I said, is it any advantage? He said, yes. He said, yes, I have 18% more surface area and all the moat. Oh, great, I said. How does it grow? He said, it grows fantastically, Bill. I'm very grateful to you. So I just left it at that. I never told him it should have been 6 feet across. I mean, imagine the work in the damn thing. It was like building the pyramids. And it worked. But it's simply true that for most things you can't scale them up. For an awful lot of things, they work real good when you can reach the middle, standing beside them, and not at all if you've got to do kangaroo leaps to the middle and leap out again. So you don't have, in this, you don't have any path space. It's just a continuous wind-up of about 60.
Scale it down? I mean, for pygmies?
There's not a lot of point. I would put 4 big rocks, fill them up, put 4 little rocks and just do it like that. Yeah. But things reach some sort of efficiency level at a certain distance across in height, and they're certainly very efficient for watering, and I think you have to be able to access your own garden. So you've got to be able to reach all your herbs standing at your door. Well, that's how I built mine. I was in this heavy zone period where I brought everything right up to my door. It ought to be in zone 1. I had my lemon tree there, my herbs there. I'll never look back. It's always the best way to do it. Actually, curiously, you can know all these things and design them and tell yourself that's the way to do it, and then you go and you don't do it properly, and eventually you give yourself a slap in the face and say, no, I better go get my herbs and put them in a spiral. And when you do, it's satisfactory. So we often disobey our own rules, yeah.
Is there a tree that you could plant next to that in the fall will drop its leaves and mulch with earth spiral for you?
Yes. It's says Barnea, says Ban. Yeah, and it's full height in 3 months, and has an enormous nodules. Doesn't interfere with anything, and you can whack it off and mulch it all down, and it's full height in 3 months again.
What is your
Says Barnea, says Ban. There must be others.
Is that a common name?
Yes, says Barnea. Right. Between these two, you've got a great, and your spud box, you've got a great deal of your garden. A good non-dig rice plot gives you 6,000 pounds of rice per acre, read Fukuoka. That's easy, you know. So how much rice do you need a year? Well, let's go back. The people who eat most rice in the world are the Nepalese. The dalbat, you know. And even the littlest Nepalese woman sits down a heap of rice 2 or 3 times a day, like that. So they eat 500 pounds of rice per head. And I don't believe that, but they say they do. Right. But in China, the average rice consumed, and they could be said to be, you know, rice eaters, is only about 150 pounds, 156 pounds or something. Yeah. So how much of an acre do you want to plant in rice? 6,000 pounds in an acre. You want 156. Get busy, get busy.
When you say no dig rice, what do you mean?
Oh, we just strew the rice on the patch, mulch it, and put a little boards around and flood it up. Put a tiny little berm around. Get our rice going. How many acres of rice do you need? Yeah. It's a tiny patch. It's something like this corner here, with Bill sitting in it. So if you mulched this out, sowed between his legs, and didn't miss any, this is enough rice for your family for the year. So if you want another staple, that's it. Then you have to indulge in a little sickle, and you have to thresh over a wooden block. That's perfectly all right. If you want to grow wild rice, which is much more expensive and I think just as good, then put it in pots and put the pots in the water. You get a pound weight of rice per pot, providing you take the grains off as they ripen, and it takes 3 weeks for all of them to ripen. So you can get an awful lot of wild rice in 150 pots, which is not much, much less, like that. And the trendies love wild rice. So, you know, 150 pounds of wild rice, you get a ton of rice for that. At least, worth a lot more than a ton of rice.
Can you use 5-gallon buckets? Or
Pardon? No, just about 9-inch, 12-inch pot would grow awful lot of wild rice.
What's the reason for the pot?
Well, you don't have to transplant for a start, and you can move the things about in the water and harvest, because you've got to harvest every head. You just make little lanes and go around. You can carry a little artificial canoe in one hand. Per length to crop. Both of our beds beat them flat, but the deciding factor was we set out bowls of strawberries for taste tests amongst the students who all wanted to be the ones who won. We weren't being fairly judged. And our strawberries, on blind tests, our strawberries beat them flat again.
Well, can you use leaves, broad leaves, if you don't have newspaper, or?
Yes,
You can create a
you can.
mound.
You can use palings, you can use flat stones. What you have to do is cut light out to the Earth's surface so that there's no chance of weed seeds germinating. And I think they need a 3/millionth of a second flash of light to start germinating, something tiny. So like when you're double digging and turning the... And it is a great book, and she was a great woman. It's one of these good, tough books, you know. We mounted a very strange challenge to the Orange Bathurst Agricultural College. We challenged them to a strawberry growing contest. This is real weird. And they did it the way they had to do it, you know, mound her up, put plastic all over it, pour chemicals along the rows, plant their strawberries and sort of stand, and they laid drip lines under the plastic. Ruth did her maltz garden, I did mine. We all used the same strawberry runners. When strawberries were on the crop, we weighed the strawberries. Gardening, end of gardening. Although that sounds a bit careless, it's the result of an awful lot of trial and work to get that recipe right. The first time I heard about this system was somebody who came to my garden in '54 and said, "Oh, you're a Ruth Stout devotee." "What's Ruth Stout?" I said. And I said, this woman in America had written a book on no-dig gardening, which I didn't get till 11 years later before I could find it. And it is a great book. And I think it's out of print. Ruth's dead. The sod's over. Flash, flash. You're making yourself a weed problem. If weeds come up in this, if by any chance, you know, a dock sometimes got enough root to push its way right through and come out on top, just push it down and put more straw on it. And that will keep you for about 80 minutes a year. It'll keep your family in salads and most ordinary vegetables, you know, cauliflowers, whatever. So you just put in the number you would use in a year, that's all. But then you have to sit down and work out your whole year on a piece of paper. Because only you know what you like. And you plant the sort of squash you like, and you plant the sort of cucumbers you like. You can also put a little trellis up the back of the whole thing. And I always put a row of sunflowers or Jerusalem artichoke around it, so you can put a little trellis up here. And I always put this row of tall, well, Jerusalem artichoke really is the best. Rounded, it's a little windbreak, and it's also another crop. And that's it. But if you're out on the high plains and it's, you know, screaming cold and the winds are cold, nothing to stop you building a four-tile wall, 4 high, around it, and face that to the sun.